All right, let's get started. We only have 40 minutes now, so I'll try to make this quick. So we have a very important topic to talk about right now: pitch decks. Pitch decks. You heard Colin this morning. You're going to be hearing a lot more from publishers and investors throughout this event. Everybody will say the pitch deck is the first impression, the most important thing that you can see. And also, if you don't actually have a meeting with somebody and you're not sitting next to them face to face, then of course it's even more important because I'm not going to be able to see you. I'm going to see your deck first. So let's try to dig into this. The way I'm going to run this, I'm first going to tell you a couple of things about what is important, what kind of ammunition that you can use, and I'm going to also give you a very important example about markets because it's relevant to the pitch deck. I'll try to keep that short. Then we're going to jump over to a pitch deck template that you can download and use as your baseline to build an even better deck. And hopefully that is a good start for you. I can talk about pitch decks for 5 hours, but we don't have that kind of time. Okay, let me share my screen. Now, before we get started, in case you weren't here the first day or in case you haven't heard about, Global Top Round, just so you understand why we are able to tell you this information, we have closed $22 million USD worth of deals in the last 20 months, averaging about $1 million a month, even more. And, we build all the pitch decks and investor decks with our studios. So this is something that we do for a living, which is why, we are able to give you this information and why you hopefully will listen to us. But to be very, very clear here, pitch decks are subjective, meaning that everything I'm going to tell you now is what I want to see and is what we as GTR send to publishers and investors. But not every publisher or investor have the same kind of opinion, right? For us, for example, we really like data. We really like demographics. Some publishers and investors might not care. Regardless, listening to me, maybe watching other people talk about pitch decks, you should get a really good overview of what is important. We've done 56 investments in the last 7 years, and we're going to do 10 more every single year. So we work with studios all the time. Now, when you start digging into your pitch deck, the first things you should think about is the challenges that you and your studio have. And you need to understand what people like me, what the publishers, and what the investors are looking for. So the first thing is, how are you going to market your game? Now, this question, you might think, well, isn't the publisher going to do it for me? Maybe, but when you're pitching them, you need to know how you would market your game, right? Because the publisher is going to take your product, your company, and your team, and your game idea, and then fine-tune it and then market it towards an audience. But they need to understand who you intended to make the game for. Which brings me to the second bullet, which is, of course, who will you market your game to? We're going to dig deep into this one because every presentation I do, or every presentation I receive, or I would say 9 out of 10, I always get this one stupid slide. The new zoo data, the gaming market is $180 billion worth, blah, blah, blah. It's a terrible slide, guys. Why? Because you're not going to make $1 billion. The whole market is not relevant to your game because you don't have the entire world as your target market. Most likely, you have maybe 0.01% of certain countries, right? That's what I want to see. I want to figure out when I see your pitch deck, how does your brain think? Who did you intend to make the game to? Did you make the game just because you thought it was fun? Did you make the game because you thought, Thai people would like it? Did you make the game because you thought the Western market would like it? That's the kind of information I want to receive and read very quickly when I'm into your pitch deck. Because that's going to tell me, okay, you developed this game idea, you have this demo, and you intended to market it to, for example, the West. When I play it, I can feel, okay, yeah, this is a good game for the Western market. Or quite the opposite, I might be like, hey, are you guys sure this is a good Western game? I think it would be more fit for the Asian market. And that will open up kind of a conversation between us. So these two first questions are extremely important. All you need, guys, all you need is to hit one singular market to make a lot of money. Even the smallest markets in the world nowadays are millions of dollars. Gaming is bigger than movie and music combined. Do you understand how important that is, right? You only need to hit Malaysia. You only need to hit Thailand, and you can make millions of dollars. So stop thinking so globally and start thinking, who did you make this game for? And explain to me and to other partners why. Now, once you've thought about these two, you need to think about how are you going to find a great publishing partner? Or, of course, how are you going to self-publish? So even more important, if you are going to self-publish, the first two bullet points are even more important. Because when you tell an investor that you need $500,000 and $200K is going to marketing, which countries are you using that marketing budget in? How are you going to spend it? Are you spending it on social media? Are you spending it on YouTube? Influencers? Who, again, who will you market that game to? Even more important. Now, going back to the publishing partner, if your target market is, for example, let's take something unique like Japan, right? If your target market is Japan, the first thing that you need to do is find data to back up that opinion, right? Like, why is your game going to be successful in the Japanese market? And then you start researching Japan and figure out what the top publishers are. And like Colin said this morning in the other speaker session, you start researching who might be the best fit for you. Yes, you can take your pitch deck and send it out to 200 publishers. It's not really going to get you anywhere. Always do your research first. I like to do something which is very simple, which is do a top 10 list. So whenever we sign a new game, a new studio, we ask them first, what are the top 10 publishers you want to work with and why? Once they've put down their publishing list and their publishers, we give our opinion on why it's wrong or why it's right, and then we mutually decide on the first 10 publishers to reach out to, or in some cases, just one. We had one game that we just announced with Gamigo, Dynamite Studios Fractured. We only pitched Gamigo, really. Like, we knew it was a perfect game for Gamigo. We'd known them for years. They'd been following Fractured since the Kickstarter. It was a perfect fit, so we didn't actually spend much time and effort to pitch other people. We focused on raising money to continue development, and then we pitched Gamigo, and we signed the publishing deal. So when you do that research on finding a great publishing partner, it always comes down to what can you do for them and what can they do for you, right? And the final bullet, of course, is how are you going to secure funding to sustain your game in the long term? We talked a bit about investments yesterday, so if you're watching this now or you missed the session yesterday, please go back to read more in depth the different kinds of funding you can do, angels and all of that. I went through that yesterday. But as a quick recap, how are you going to secure the funding? We need to know that within the pitch deck, right? Are you asking for money from the publisher? Are you asking from the investor? Do you have grants available? Or if you live in a country like Germany, if we give you $200,000, are you going to get $200,000 from the grant as well? This slide, you need to tell us everything about how you're going to sustain yourself. And most importantly, guys, well, not most importantly, but one of the most important things is, please, when you send us budgets, pay yourself real salaries, right? Like, I don't know how many pitch decks I've read where people are barely paying themselves anything. And I'm like questioning, well, how are you going to stay alive, right? It's okay to ask for an average, at the very least, game industry salary, right? So when you send over the budget for the game, or when you show it in the pitch deck, at least pay yourself an average salary and all of your staff. And when you talk about the budget to the publisher and the investor, you explain this $100,000 is going to salaries, and average we're paying ourselves $2,000 a month, whatever it may be. This is important because when an investor sees you, one of the things that we care about is that you can take care of yourself, you can take care of your family if you have a family, and you can be happy, because if you're happy, you're going to make a better game. And those are some of the things that we as stakeholders are looking for. It's not just the game. It's also the company, because we need to believe in you being able to deliver. And if you're paying yourselves $200 a month, I don't believe you're going to deliver. If I was being paid $200 a month, I wouldn't be here, right? Once you're able to get funding, please ask for the money. Of course, the whole step of getting there, like we talked about yesterday, of having that initial funding, about putting in sweat equity, like that is still something that every startup has to do, right? But when you finally ask for money, please ask for enough. All right, so for us publishers and investors, right, there is not a lot of data to back up our decisions. Like on the mobile, it's very easy. We've talked about that, and we're going to keep talking about that throughout this event. But on mobile, there is so much data. We have CPI, we have ROAS, we have ARPU, ARPU, and so forth. And all of these decisions is also why it's so hard to sign a deal with a mobile publisher or investor, because without that data, why would I sign you, right? I could just take an easier risk and go for somebody that, already has all the data that I need. So on PC and console, we don't have a lot. The only thing that we have is we have you, your pitch deck, your team, and all the meetings that we have together, and that research that you've done. We're going to cross-check that. We're going to do our own, but there is still a limit of data, right? And a lot of the times our investments fail. Even with GTR, we don't have a 100% hit rate. That's absolutely impossible. And a lot of you in here, if all 24 of you sign publishing deals, half of you might fail. That's the sad reality. Or maybe 90% of you will make it. But it is very risky for us. And Most importantly, when it comes to markets here, what works in Thailand is not going to work in Sweden. What works in Malaysia is not going to work in the US. Every market is different. And that's why that data on what markets you want to cover is very important, so that we spend the money wisely. Whether it's a publisher or investor, we want to make sure that our marketing dollars are going towards the right market, being spent the right way. And the last thing, of course, is that loyal gamers are very hard to find. That's why when you do the research about the publishers, if you find a publisher that already have loyal gamers, right, that already have the genres that you have, it's going to be much easier for you to actually convince them and make a better pitch. Because if you're already targeting a customer base that they have since before, then they don't have to spend that much money finding a new market, finding new people, right? Which is why you want to approach every publisher with as much information as you can. Now, imagine us gamers, right? We're always looking for the next big game. There are way too many games to play. Last year, I think there was 9,800 games released on Steam, if not more. And not only that, we don't get that much, for supporting early games right now. And also, the new generation are pretty much only playing, AAA titles. The indie market is mostly people above the age of 18 right now. There are, of course, younger people that play indies as well. But generally, it's a lot of us older people that play indies. So if we're going to get involved early with your studio, you have to build some sort of program where we can feel like, our risks are being, or our concerns are being addressed. Let's talk a bit about ammunition. I don't know why, but my pitch deck has been bugged out here, so I apologize. It looked fine on my computer, but now it doesn't anymore. So let's pretend this design looks perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the pitch deck, and we're going to dig into this a bit more, of course, when I swap over to a template and an example. But the first thing, of course, is the general content, right? And what kind of background do you have? What kind of background does the company have? And why did you decide to make this game? Usually, the content part is about 5 to 6 slides, maybe. And in total, your pitch deck should not be more than 15. I normally say 12 to 13 slides is perfect. And then one intro, one outro. So 15 in total. You have the first company logo, whatever. You have the last contact slide, and then you have 10 to 13 slides of content. Now, in the pitch content itself, we want to know, how did you come up with the game? What kind of mechanics does your game have? And on this topic, please stop talking about USPs that much, okay? Like, USPs nowadays is almost impossible, right? And if you're unfamiliar with what a USP means, it basically means the uniqueness of your game. What makes your game more unique than anything else, or what is something that your game has that nobody else has? There are so many games nowadays that USPs are almost impossible. So if you can't pitch your own USP, why don't you tell us what makes you better than your competitors, right? So rather than talking about how unique you are, why don't you tell me why you're better than Fortnite, for example? Of course, let's as an example. But like, what makes your Battle Royale game better than Fortnite? Why will people pick up your game over Fortnite? What makes it more important? What makes it more fun? What kind of emotions will it give? And on that note, emotions, right? Like, what do you want your players to feel, right? Well, you created this game for a reason. Do you want them to feel anger, excitement, hype? Like, what is the kind of emotions that goes through? Because when you tell us about the mechanics in the game and why you came up with it, there will be a result, right? You build something, you sell it, people give comments and reviews. So what are you expecting out of the audience? That's something that a lot of people don't include, which is very interesting to everybody, every publisher, every investor. If you can tell us what kind of emotions you want the players to feel, because that's going to be a big part of the marketing campaign later on when you're preparing for launch, because they're going to take your feedback and your data to find that target audience. So if you already know who you're targeting and what you want them to feel, and we can see it when we play the demo, it's a great starting point. We also want to, have a breakdown of features, like, is there crafting? How does the crafting work? Is there boss levels? Is it procedurally generated? And of course, what tools are you using, right? Are you using Unity? Are you using Unreal? Are you using any other implementations that we need to know about? Because this is going to be important when we eventually submit the game to Nintendo and Steam and everything. So we need to know, the technology behind it. And then, of course, after this, you need to also build out the general storyline, right? So you told us why you're making the game. You told us who you're targeting for. You told us the emotions. Now, what are the demographics, right? Like, you're making it for a specific audience, which could be FPS gamers, 18 to 35, whatever, but which specific audience is it that you want to target that we talked about in the previous slide? Are you targeting the West, the East, which particular countries? And please back this up with something, right? Like show us screenshots of the art, show us a trailer, whatever that we can see that kind of backs up all the text that you have in the pitch deck. So if we can see that the art style is very good for the Asian market and you're talking about targeting 18 to 35-year-old FPS gamers in Southeast Asia, then we're more inclined to believe in you, which means we'll book a meeting with you. All your pitch deck needs to do is make me interested enough that I want to reach out and have a meeting with you. That's the goal of the pitch deck, right? Or if you're presenting, face to face, it should be as a backup of you talking. So 36 slides on the game, right? Then we want to know what is the company and the background in more detail. When did you get founded? How many people are you? What's the background of the team? And I know a lot of indie developers ask me this, but I just came out of college, or I don't have a cool background, or I don't have a resume, whatever. It doesn't matter, guys. If we're gonna work together, I want to know if you go fishing on your weekends. It doesn't really matter. Like anything to kind of give us an idea of who you are as people, so that we can understand. And also, of course, are you how many employees are you planning to hire? So once you get the money that you're asking for, are you expanding to 4 people, 6, 10, 20? What is my money going to, right? So how much money are you looking for? Where is the money going to be spent? And what is your hiring plans, right? This is in the company, background, and investment. And what do you want out of the partner? Is it just money? Is it marketing? Is it porting? Right? Like, what are the different kind of services that you're expecting from the publisher or the investor? So for GTR, right, if you're pitching me, my assumption would be you're pitching me because you want to learn stuff about this, right? You want to learn more about pitching. You want to learn more about how to build a company. You want to expand your team. You want to coach your employees. And ultimately, you want us to help you close a deal, right? If that is in your slide and you're pitching me, awesome. You did your research. You know who I am. Perfect. Easier for me to understand that, okay, yes, you are the kind of people that we want to work with. Then show us a roadmap. Visual is very important, in my opinion, where you can actually see from the day you started to where you are now and where the money is going to take you, right? So if you're here right now and you're looking for $500,000, how long is this going to take you? Now, very quickly on the amount of money you're looking for, and Zach mentioned this in the lawyer session, always ask for a little bit more, guys. You can't just ask for money until the day of the launch. Why? Because you're not going to see money for 3 months. Most likely the first revenue you're going to get from the game is going to be 3 months after launch, because the publisher needs to recoup their money, or if you're self-publishing, you need to wait for all the refunds and everything to come in through Steam. So try to ask for a 3-month buffer and explain to the publisher that this is on top of 3 months of post-launch support, bug fixing, making sure things are running smoothly, etc. Or you can add a margin on top of all of it, but a lot of people say this, well, add 20 to 30% margin on your budget. I don't really like to do that. I prefer to just be upfront with the publisher, saying that this is how much we need to finish the game, and here is 3 to 6 months of live ops and support that we need in order to stay alive and make sure that the game sells as much as possible. Now, the final one. Partners and why they should work with you, right? So again, if you're reaching out to GTR, I'm assuming you've read what we do. I'm assuming you've been on our website. If you reach out to Devolver, you should add details on why you're reaching out to Devolver. So this slide can be 1 or 2 pages where you explain why in particular you're reaching out to me, to Devolver, to Gamigo, to Tencent, whatever, right? Explain what they're going to get out of working with you and why they're the perfect partner for you. And then you're probably wondering, well, Pontus, I don't have time to make 55 individual pitch decks. That's not what I'm asking. As a general rule of thumb, you have 1 deck for presentation, right? This doesn't need to have a lot of text, but when you're in a one-on-one meeting with me, it can be screenshots, it can be concept. It's not as relevant on the pitch content when you're pitching me one-on-one, because I'm going to listen to your voice and I'm going to look at the content, right? So then all the investment stuff and roadmap is more important, but you're using it to talk at the same time. The second deck you have is the one you send out to everybody, right? It does not include a particular type of partner. It just includes all the other information I'm talking about. This deck you can send to any type of partner. You can send it to a company. Information you can, if you don't know what publisher you want to work with yet and you need feedback, you can send it to a bunch of publishers. And then the third deck is that one that you individually customize to your top 10 list. That's how we work, right? We make an individual deck for that more important list of the people we think are perfect. Then we have the general deck to pitch, everybody or present the company. And then there is another one which is for oral presentation, like the one that I'm doing here. Like if you're looking at this deck and you haven't heard my voice or you're not listening to what I'm saying right now, I don't think you'll understand what pitch content means, right? It doesn't say 3 to 6 slides of game. It doesn't say what each slide should be inclusive, right? So if you read this presentation without hearing my voice, you're probably not going to understand what the hell I'm talking about, right? It's very vague. So this is an example of, a speaker session or a face-to-face kind of deck. Now, if you have more data and if you have more plans and if you know exactly where you're going to go, supporting data. This is what I talked about in the previous slide. Have you had any sort of community testing done? Do you know exactly what market you're targeting? Do you have some data to back it up, whether it's research, interviews, surveys, friends, publisher feedback, whatever, or if you're on mobile, Google Play reviews, right? And the countries that they are from. Here, it doesn't matter if it's 100 testers or 1,000. Put in anything you have. Reddit threads where you got a lot of upvotes and a lot of comments, like anything that kind of gives us an idea of, okay, how is the community going to react, right? Oh, they had 100 testers. They were all Southeast Asian, very positive. Cool. All right, that looks good. We'll do our own testing, continue building. Is it a niche? If it is a niche genre, right? If you're doing something like, let's say Animal Crossing. Again, how are you going to target this target market and what makes you more unique and why would people pick you up? And finally, again, demographics. Please tell us any sort of data you have to back up why you're targeting specific markets. Now, the future, or the last slide, this is sometimes included, sometimes not, but when you're speaking to investors, you need to have this, right? On that roadmap and timeline slide, make one extra one telling us, okay, what are you going to make the company into, right? Are you building one IP? Are you going to make 10 Diablos? Are you going to make one Diablo IP, but different genres, right? Like branching out, one RPG, one board game, one blah, blah, blah. Yesterday, you watched some of the GTR games pitches, and in one of them, Exalted Studio talked about branching out into board games and also miniature figures, right? Tell us more about what you want to build with the company. And are you going to make a bunch of different IPs? Okay, let us know so that we have a general overview of where you are going as a company. So let's kind of start digging into a bit on these markets, right? Now, I am intentionally using outdated data on all of these following slides because I want you to basically take a look at this and then go out after this session, like throughout the next couple of days, and research yourself, and you'll see how right I am and how much things have changed and gone in the direction that the trends showed us. And this is a great example, right? Arena of Valor, published by Tencent and Garena. It was the highest grossing game in the world, right? I think they make around $1 billion or more a year right now. They tried to launch it in Europe and NA. They failed. Perfect example of how even a company as big as them cannot target a global market. They were like, I don't know what they were thinking, but maybe they were like, oh yeah, this game is like insanely active in Southeast Asia and China. It's going to be easy to publish in the West, but the Western people don't really play that many mobile games, especially not, if I have the choice to sit down and play Counter-Strike or Age of Empires or sit here with my phone, I will pick the computer every time. Now, a Thai person, for example, will pick the phone because all their friends will be on the phone and they all play Arena of Valor. So even a company with billions of dollars cannot target a global market with one of their games. Why do you think you can? And this is one of my favorite slides because it tells you that when I say you can't target a global market, I'm not just speaking out of my ass, right? It's real. Like it happens. So try to pinpoint your market as small as possible. Like saying that you're going to take 1% of FPS gamers in Asia might not sound like a lot. You're like, oh, 1%? That's nothing. In reality, that is millions and millions of dollars. So think about that when you're doing stuff, right? Another slide problem. Something's going on with my PowerPoint today. So again, what are the things that you can execute as a studio in regards to this, right? So once you have that, game that you have right now and kind of branching out into the future and into building an IP and into building a company. There are so many different things that you can do. You have the video game. Now you can branch out into board games. Nowadays, there is something called NFTs, which I'm not going to go into. You have TV shows, you have comic books, you have merchandise. And this is why, like Zachary said, it's important you get that trademark, secure your IP, and you can build copyrights and stuff later. And then once you've done that first game, once you hopefully have a success, you have all these different types of ways to branch out and make more money on your IP. You can negotiate with TV channels if you have a good enough IP. You can build comic books. You can build merchandise. So all of these things are relevant for us as investors to understand what you want to do next. One slide, guys. One slide about your dream. This is years away. We're not going to expect you to know this now. But another really cool thing is licensing your source code and your IP. So if you're making a PC game, only a PC game, because you don't have capacity to do console, why not let the publisher port it to console? Or why not license it to another studio to publish it for you? Because you have nothing to lose. If you never intended to make it on console anyway, why not let somebody else do it? And maybe you make $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 more. Every indie is always too scared or too ambitious. And it's kind of hard to reach that middle, right? Too scared in the way that they don't think all of this is going to be possible. But that's why, like, if you give me 20 slides on why you're going to succeed about this before launching a game, I might laugh at you, right? Because you haven't proven anything. But if you give me one slide about what you want to do, what you want to create, what your dream company is, we love that. We want to understand, again, you as a person. So if this is your dream to do this and utilizing your IP, then let us know. One slide, let us know. And please think about letting other people do some work for you. Licensing the source code, letting other people, port it, and make extra money that way. I just realized these slides are a bit jumbled, but going back to doing that playtest. When you're currently in a stage where you don't have a launch game, right? And you need some sort of data to add into the pitch deck, to put these in the deck itself. Start building a community very, very early. Okay, I get a question a lot of times, like, well, I only have like 50 followers on Discord. I don't have time. I have my full-time job. I can't do this. Please, 99.9% of all of you are on social media at least 10 minutes a day. All you have to do is go into your calendar, put aside 15 minutes a day to post stuff about your game, post stuff about concept, post things on Reddit, post things in the indie game dev on Facebook. Get your name out there. Get your concepts out there. And no, I hear this other thing a lot, which is like, well, what if they steal my concept? You're telling me that you releasing one character means that somebody's going to steal it? Or you doing one GIF, somebody's going to copy your game? Nobody even knows if your game is going to be successful. The best way for you to get out there and get people to give you feedback, somebody that doesn't care about you, right? You need people that don't care about you initially to give you raw feedback so you can convert them into fans and make better games. Go out there and use all this public knowledge 15 minutes a day. Talk to people. Post on Reddit. Post on Twitter. As early as concept prototype and pre-production, before you even have the demo. It is immensely valuable to do this, really. These are the different platforms that we recommend. Of course, we have Discord, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Reddit. Honestly, Facebook is pretty terrible nowadays. They have very bad organic reach. You need to pay to reach people. Twitter and Discord are my personal favorites, with Discord being the primary thing where you can funnel people towards. So pick one platform to be your main one. And then every single post you make on LinkedIn, Reddit, whatever you choose, funnel them to that one place. That will be your main community hub. Whether it's Twitter or Discord, again, it's my personal favorites. Doesn't mean it's correct. But picking one platform to funnel everybody towards, to grow your followers, grow your fans, and then engaging with them is a great way to get started and get early community feedback. Of course, right after that, we have G Round nowadays, but we didn't used to have that before. And you can, of course, reach out to us, our second company, and I believe Lex is going to talk about that tomorrow. If he is out of the hospital, as you guys know, he has COVID, so hopefully he'll be okay tomorrow, and talk about G Round. But yeah, pick one place, start funneling people right there, or submit your game to G Round if that's what you want to do. Okay, before we jump over to the template, let's quickly look at some more data to convince you, right? Like, yeah, I can sit here and speak as much as I want to about how I'm right about markets, or like, yeah, Southeast Asia this, West this. Why listen to me when you can just look at the data, right? So let's take a look at Southeast Asia, and again, old data. So what I want you to do after this, write down question bullets and look at the 2021 numbers, and it's even higher than what I'm about to show you. So in Southeast Asia, we've had one of the craziest growths in the last 3 years in particular. I believe India's market has grown like 300% or something in total revenue over the last 3 years. Southeast Asia in general, back in 2019, had a 22% year-on-year growth. I believe Thailand grew by 32% this year. Our market here in Southeast Asia is growing insanely fast. The majority of it is, of course, mobile devices, but in general, the whole market is growing. Games like Fortnite, games like Rust, Roblox, all these games are bringing in more and more people that eventually will convert to potential customers of yourself. So if we take a look at 2017, 2018, and 2022 here, this is in the regards to millions of dollars. It was estimated to be $2 billion in 2017, and it was estimated to be $4.5 billion in 2022. It is way higher than that now. A new report came out a few days ago. I didn't have time to buy the report and put it into the deck because I wanted to do that, but it was a bit too expensive. But the amount of users have grown to over, right now, I believe there's 980 million users in Southeast Asia actually playing video games. That's crazy. And something that is really cool and special about Southeast Asia as well is that there are more female gamers than male gamers. That is something that Europe doesn't have. It's something that, Japan and Korea doesn't have. But in Southeast Asia, we have more female gamers than male. Again, most of them on mobile, but that's something that's really cool. So if you ever thought about when you put in your deck that you're targeting just male gamers, please reconsider. There's a lot of female gamers nowadays. And again, they're more than male in Southeast Asia, which means they're a customer of you as well. And there was one pitch yesterday where we talked about this in particular, where, having female characters, having more representation will also allow you to reach out to new markets. So we're in a new age now, everybody. I remember back in school, when gaming wasn't that cool, women were more interested in us playing sports. Nowadays, pretty much all of my female friends, play games. The world has changed a lot and is growing so incredibly fast that you need to grow with it and adapt to the market itself. So in Southeast Asia, of course, the difference is that the first way is there is less spending here per user, but that also means that it's lower user acquisition cost. It also means that you need to localize in different types of languages because not everybody speaks English. But one thing that is cool is that there are several markets that are actually very similar to the West, where you can get a low cost to do playtest, low cost to acquire users. And the two markets in particular is Malaysia and Philippines. So Malaysia has, of course, pretty much everyone speaks English. In Philippines, 70-80% speak English, at least at the very minimum. So that means that you can use Malaysia and Philippines as a target market to kind of test out your games, whether it's mobile or PC, because they're also the most similar to the West. If you look at the top games in Malaysia on PC, they're almost a copy-paste of the West. If you look at mobile, of course, it's a little bit different. I know that Mobile Legends and I know that Arena of Valor is very big in Malaysia and Philippines, and also Free Fire. But in general, if you're a PC gamer, you can actually use these two markets to get feedback, talk to people, and not have to pay too much money. So if you're looking to target the Western market, start with Malaysia, start with Philippines. And the more this market grows, the more gamers we're going to be getting. Like, gaming is getting into schools now. We have college leagues in mobile sports. We have college leagues in PC. I helped design a corporate league for some of the biggest telecoms, where we did like a corporate league for all the employees playing Dota 2 together and Arena of Valor, so both PC and mobile, which is really cool. So this whole market is being more and more gamers, right? We shouldn't be forgetting that. This is a presentation that I first did towards the West, the first time I did it, because they did not understand the growth potential of Southeast Asia. And look at us now, right? We have grown at a massive speed, over 100% in the last 3 years, and it's not going to stop here. Now, one thing that Malaysia and Philippines and the general Southeast Asia has is that they do have more casual gamers, which means if you're making a casual game and not a super hardcore game, there is an even larger audience for you here. In the West and in Europe, we're still very much into the hardcore esport games. Of course, we play casual too, but less, right? So when you're looking at your own product, try to keep that in mind too. Are you a hardcore game? Are you a casual, hyper casual? So that you're not just coming to me with a slide next week showing me, hey Pontus, I did my research, and I think 18 to 35 of the Germans will play my game. Remember that it's genre related as well, right? All the information I'm showing you here is free online. You can find this very easily with Google, right? So when you have time to present a deck to an investor or a publisher, you'll have weeks. You have weeks to do research on all of this. So don't rush into anything, right? Listen to what I have to say today. Look at other people and look at all the sessions throughout this event, and try to build something new with more in-depth information about your game and your market. So currently, again, outdated numbers. It's actually even higher now, but 67% of the game revenue in Southeast Asia was back in 2018. Nowadays, I believe it's 82, so that the mobile growth has grown. But you might listen to that like, oh shit, I can't launch PC games anymore because 82% is like mobile. Well, you see, that's not true, because the whole market has grown so much that the old 33% that is now 18 is still higher. There's more revenue now. There's more players, but it is true that Southeast Asia does have more mobile. So if you are making mobile games, it is going to be a more important market than the West. But please don't forget that, I will repeat this probably 100 times, but one market is all you need to hit, guys. All you need to hit. Hit Thailand, hit Malaysia. Don't go global, right? Tencent can't do it. You can't do it. Esports is another thing, of course, that have really kind of like grown everybody into a bigger community. People love, cooperative games. They love multiplayer. Making single player games nowadays is very, very hard, especially in the West. And on mobile, of course, there are hyper casual games that are single player, multiplayer, irrelevant. When it comes to esports, there are a couple of bigger titles. There's, of course, Arena of Valor. There is Free Fire. There is PUBG Mobile. And these are generally the main three that are being played all the time. And that might not seem relevant to you, but it is, because you have leaderboards, because you have these the ways of interacting with your friends, uploading on social media. It makes you developing social features even more important if you're targeting Southeast Asia. So if you're a game that requires a lot of social levels, and if you have a lot of multiplayer engagement, implement social medias. Allow people to share stuff on Twitter, Facebook, Discord, whatever you want to implement, because it's even more important here, right? In the West, you won't see a lot of people uploading a screenshot on their Facebook. In Asia, especially here in Thailand, I see it every day. I see people uploading Dota 2 screenshots, Han screenshots, whatever it may be, and social engagement is incredibly important. Sadly, I don't have time to dig more into that, but keep that in mind if you're targeting Southeast Asia, that you do need to have more engagement and more social media involved than if you're targeting the West. So yeah, professional leagues. Oh, that's Alan right there. I just realized. So that's funny, because Alan here on the screenshot, he was in my condo 2 days ago. He leads the esport initiatives for ROV and Garena. I didn't know he was in my deck. That's funny. Yeah, but right now, of course, you've all heard of Garena. They have a lot of different games here in Southeast Asia. They are the top publisher in Southeast Asia. And if you look at them, they have several things in every single game that they have. Number one, they have community engagement. And, yes, you won't have the budget to do an esport tournament, but you can still have community engagement. I talked about that earlier. Building a community, funneling them to Discord, Twitter, all this stuff. You can still do that free of charge. For Garena, they have the budget, and hopefully you do in the future, to build larger things, build engagement, build hype, build streams. And that's where we all eventually want to go. But we got to start small, guys. We got to start making content. We got to start testing our concept before we can reach Garena's levels. And it's also very easy to get in here in Southeast Asia, because it's not that strict to actually launch games. We can develop games however we want. We can say however we want. There are not any bans like there is in China. And all you really need, again, to target Philippines, Malaysia, is English. Now, if you want to go into Vietnam, you want to go into Laos, you want to go into Thailand, you're going to need localization. But you don't need to do that right away. To show investors and publishers, you just need to give us that first initial input, that first initial feedback, which you can get from Philippines and Malaysia to English-speaking countries. I'm going to have to skip ahead here because we are only 15 minutes left, and I want to show you the template. I talk too much. Sorry about that. So, for example, here, In Thailand, right now, this percentage has gone up as well. Daily use of social media and video game, and messaging platforms, it's over 60% now in 2022. It's probably going to reach 70%. 2021. It's going to reach 70% in 2022, and social media is just insanely high. Thai people in particular, very willing to spend money on skins, very willing to buy heroes, very willing to do all of these stuff, and you might not know how to do so. So, as Colin said this morning, and as we'll keep talking about, working with distributors and publishers might be a way of choice if you don't have a big enough team to work in all the markets. So, again, focus on what you're good at. Focus on the markets you can target. Let somebody else do the work for you. And for example, in Thailand, we have Songkran, which is the Thai New Year's. And every year in Heroes of New Earth, we would launch several Songkran promotions. And, we sold a lot, right? And there is one company here in the Malaysian event that actually have already done this, third-party payments, working with local banks or telecoms or whatever to actually get help in accepting payments. Because not everybody has a credit card, right? Those are also things you need to take into account. And of course, for Malaysia, we have some rules and prohibitions, of course, but everybody is proficient in English. It's like 80% or even more, and that is incredibly important. Again, so focus on Malaysia and Philippines to get started. I'm gonna just skip ahead here now, or we're gonna run out of time. So let me jump into the next one, and we'll quickly run through this. Here we go. Okay, so sorry about that. I tend to overshare here. So we're going to dig in these last 13 minutes, and maybe we'll do a quick 5-minute Q&A on a pitch deck. So the reason I'm showing you Raw Fury's pitch deck is because it's free to download. If you Google right now, Raw Fury pitch deck template, you can find it online, and it's a great start. Now remember, subjective, right? I don't think Raw Fury's deck is perfect. I don't think other publishers' ways of doing it is perfect, but this is a great start. So to get started on the Raw Fury, what the first thing that they say, right, they want to know, just like I said, what is this game, right? What type of game is it? Is it a deck builder with an FPS twist? Is it going to be like something unique, some USP? So they want you to jump right into the game and what it's going to be. They also want you to build and be very important about, again, who is going to handle the porting, who's going to be handling the partnership, and also who is it made of. Like, actually, a lot of the times when we get a pitch deck in GTR, we don't get enough information about the company and enough information about the game. So the 4 things that Raw Fury thinks you need to include, and we'll take them one by one. Again, first thing, what is the game? Who's going to be porting it? How long is it going to take? Who is it made by? What are the mechanics breakdowns, right? Have you done any previous games? Do you have any interesting, backgrounds? How much money do you need to actually make this into the full potential? And what are your current numbers? Social media numbers, wish lists, community playtests, like I said, and so forth. So the first slide that they think you should talk about is, what are your core things, experiences, mechanics? This is what I mentioned, that it can be like actually up to 3 slides. Raw Fury generally likes it a bit smaller. For me, 3 to 5 slides is actually completely fine, talking a bit more about all the core things that you have and, again, who you're going to be targeting. So you can see here that everything that I just talked about, from my opinion, is being reflected here by Raw Fury's template. So if you download this, you can just literally copy paste and put in all of your information in each of these slides to get a good start. And then hopefully you listen to me so you can add in all of that extra information as well. So the core thing, of course, means what are the main features? Okay, are you shooting? Are you crafting? Are you running around, right? How are you going to do these things? Are you shooting with different types of bullets? Are you shooting with different, do you need to craft weapons to go further? Are you going to repair? What are the core mechanics around your core? And then I love this, and this is what Raw Fury and we agree on. Who are you targeting? What kind of emotion, right? Like, what kind of hype? What do you want them to feel when they're playing your game? It's something that I see in 1 out of 50 pitch decks where they actually tell you what they want you to feel. Because if you're making a game where you want people to be scared, like a horror game, for example, then it might be a good game for streamers. So if your target is to get people to get excited and scared, then Raw Fury can see here that, okay, we might know what audience to target. So a very simple overview, 3-ish slides, maximum 5, about these about this type of breakdown. Then they want you to dig into, why do you care about your game, right? What's the soul? Why did you come up with it? We had one pitch deck here in the event which talked about building a game for education, and that's amazing, right? Like, and the pitch was really good, but what wasn't there was, why did you even decide to make this, right? Like, why do you care about education? Why do you want to help kids? Why do you want to include this in a game, right? This is very important because it gives us a background of you and your founders, and like, what kind of makes you tick? What makes you feel important? Why does this make you feel excited? And why do you want to develop it, right? So tell us exactly why. It can be long, it can be short, it can be bullet points. Give us the background of why you want to do this. It's a very, very important slide, guys, and a lot of people forget about it. So, again, breakdown. Who are all of you, right? Pontus, Titus, all of these people. What is our origin story? What is our value of the company? What is our future? What do we want to accomplish? What kind of games do we want to make, right? Like, what genres do we want to focus on? Everything. Write it down. Put it here. It doesn't have to be, 40 sentences. Visualization, bullet points is sometimes enough. But we need to understand who you are, even if you have no background, even if you didn't work for Ubisoft. This is a very important point that a lot of people forget about. Now, if you have a sales projection, and this is an extra slide that is involved in my data in my own pitch deck, right? Do you have a competitive analysis? What are your 4 top competitors? Or what inspired you? And how many sales did they have? This is a good benchmark, especially if you're doing something unique or you're doing something niche. We would like to know, okay, if you're doing something niche, you have these 4 copies. Again, what makes you different? And why are you going to sell more than them, right? That's the key. It's not always about being a copy or being unique. It's about why you are going to do something better. That's the key. Not about being unique. It's almost impossible, right? I'd rather know why people would buy your game. Why do you think they will buy it? And how much do you think you're going to sell? Now, everybody will be wrong, okay? And I'm sure you're thinking right now, it's impossible to know how much I'm going to sell. And yes, while it's true, it's also not. Because if you have a budget of $100,000 and you're expecting to sell 20 million, I will probably not believe you, right? The scope of the project, the art, the target market, all of this will give us a larger breakdown of how many copies you could potentially sell. So try to do some research here. Look at the closest competitors, see how much they sold, compare indie to AAA, and find out where you think you're going to land with the effort you're putting in, with the features, with the mechanics, with the market. 50,000 copies, 100, 200, 300, 400. Put in your initial thoughts, right? And what's going to happen once you've launched? Are you planning to do any DLCs? Are you going to do updates? And this can also go into the timeline later on. Now, again, budget-wise, right? Something that is very simple and takes almost no time is a pie chart, right? If you're asking for $200,000, show us the breakdown. And remember, and I will repeat again, pay yourself an okay salary. Make sure that is included. And then show us a pie chart. So 50,000 to salaries, 30,000 to marketing, whatever. Depending on if you're publishing or self-publishing, you will include marketing, you will include events, you will include PR. But if you're telling the publisher that you want them to take care of it, just put in your development costs, your office costs, your accounting costs, etc., right? And show us the general budget. Out of all the pitches that happened at this Malaysian event, almost none of you had this slide properly made, right? This is a very, very important one. If you're asking for money or help from anybody, you need to know what it's going to cost you. And then add on top, right? Because you're never going to be accurate. Games are going to be delayed. Add 3 months minimum so that you have that safety net. Timeline, I talked about it. Visualization. Show us from where you've been. In raw theory, they're showing, we are here. This is where we're going to go. We as investors want to know a little bit more. Where did you come from? Where did you start? Have you launched games before? Here you are now, and then to where you're going, right? Show us this in a visualization template. Give us the whole rundown, add some bullet points, and show us a production schedule. Doesn't have to look like this, by the way. You can do it top down. You can do it by feature. You can do it by milestone. We just need to look at something. Because ultimately, after you've pitched the publisher and when you get into negotiation, you're going to need to do a very detailed milestone plan. So we just need the overhead. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't put in tons and tons of info. Show us the general breakdown. And that is the pitch deck for Raw Fury. As you can see, it's a lot shorter. They also recommend to stay between 10 and 12 slides, but I think it's a great starting point. We will send you an email to all of you today, by the end of today, with a bunch of links to a lot of different people, a lot of different articles to download free templates for research, for competitor comparison. It's going to be a lot to digest, but it will let you make a much better pitch deck. And then you can Google Raw Fury pitch deck if you want to get started already. Use this as a baseline, take in the information I gave you, and hopefully on Saturday next week, your pitch deck will look much better. We're also going to talk about it in the one-on-ones, of course, but generally. So that is it for this pitch deck session. It actually lasted longer than 45 minutes, so my bad. Do we have any questions before we move into the one-on-one? I know that was a lot of overwhelming information, but it's important, and that's also why we send you the VOD, so you can listen again. But yes, do you have any questions? Please post them in Vimeo right now. Remember, you don't have to sign up to Vimeo. You just click join, put in your name, and then you get started. And as far, G-Round looking forward to trying it. Yes, please, feel free to submit your game to G-Round. Here is the link if you have not seen it before. This is the link to go to G-Round. You can actually see everything that we're doing. You can see a lot of indie games are on the platform. We sometimes give out, right now we're giving out free slots to very interesting indie games. So you can actually apply and potentially get a free slot. And of course, this event, the 2 best pitches on Saturday next week will get 2 vouchers for G-Round to use for free. The full service, all inclusive. So make sure that you have adapted and improved your pitch deck for next time. Do we have any questions, or we'll jump into the one-on-ones right away? Oh, but maybe while I'm waiting, I can actually send you the Raw Fury pitch deck in the chat. Here you go. There you go. How can we pick what target audience / demographic the game really should be targeted at? Well, you should know that before you develop the game, to be very honest with you. If you develop the game without thinking who you're going to target, you've already messed up. That is the raw truth. Before you develop the game, or initially, you should already know the genre you're targeting. You should already know the demographic at a baseline, right? And then you need to put it to the test. So once you've started developing your game, you go out and get it tested. You try it with this audience. You try it with this genre group. You get their feedback and figure out where to go. But on top of that, you use the competitor breakdown or the competitor analysis to basically figure out what other games in your genre, what kind of countries they have. Because this data is free of charge. You can find it online. And if you can see that your game is very similar to Neon Abyss, for example, look at the target market that Neon Abyss sold to. Find out what countries. And if your game is very similar, the chances are that your target market will be similar, right? Then you can use that as data in the pitch deck to show, okay, Neon Abyss sold 30% to the West, 20% to Asia, blah, blah, blah. We believe we're going to be able to target this. We believe we're going to reach 10% of this. And you just show us as much data as you can. The thing is, you're never going to be accurate. We're not expecting you to be accurate. We're not expecting you to be perfect. But we are expecting you to know who you want to sell to. You have to know. I mean, if you want to make games for a living, if you want this to be your full-time business, you need to think of it as a business. That is extremely core. Any other question in the chat? I have time for one more, and then we'll jump over to the one-on-ones. Can we share as well some of our past games that we have developed? Will it help as well? Yes, I think I said that already, but maybe I didn't. But yes, during the in that roadmap visualization where you show us where you are in the timeline, I would love for you to include what you made before, or in the company/team slide. Show us games you've worked on, even if you've outsourced. That is information that we need to know. Did you work on Last of Us? Did you work on any game, whether it's indie or AAA? Put it in there. Let us know. If it's outsourced, maybe keep it on the company and the team slide. If it's something you've launched yourself within the company, add it in the visualization, right? Show us in 2015 you launched your first game, 2018 you launched your second game, etc. And if you made good sales, put it in 100%. How many copies did you sell? How did it do? I mean, anything that gives us more trust in you is very, very important. Okay? So yes, please, as much information as you can add. So all right, I think that is time's up, unless we have a last second question here. So I hope you guys learned a lot. Again, I know it's a lot of information, but hopefully you did learn quite a bit, and you can take this information, you can relook at it again, and you can build a better pitch deck for next week. And of course, you can ask us questions at any point in time. Let's make your guys' pitch as good as we can by Saturday. So even if you don't get picked for the top 2, we can still do something, awesome together. And maybe in the future you can work with us. So thank you guys for today. Get back to work, do some research, and please expect an email from us to all 24 of you with a bunch of resources. We've done our research ourselves, and we'll show you exactly how we do ours. You can use this to make better pitch decks. So see you in the one-on-ones.